More than 250 million years ago, Earth was a very different place. The continents were joined together, the climate was changing, and new forms of life were beginning to emerge. From these ancient conditions came the dinosaurs, a group of animals that would dominate the land for over 180 million years. Across vast forests, dry deserts, river valleys, and coastal regions, countless species evolved, adapted, and spread across the planet. Some were small and agile, while others grew to enormous sizes. Powerful predators hunted their prey, and giant plant eaters moved through ancient landscapes. As the world continued to change, dinosaurs remained a major part of life on Earth. More than 250 million years ago, Earth was entering a new chapter in its history. The planet had recently experienced a catastrophic mass extinction that transformed life on a global scale. Countless species vanished from the land and the seas, leaving behind ecosystems that were greatly reduced in diversity. Forests that had once covered large regions declined, many food chains collapsed, and surviving organisms faced a world that was far different from the one their ancestors had known. As life slowly recovered, the foundations of a new age began to form. This period of recovery took place during the Triassic period, the opening chapter of the Mesozoic era. It was during this time that the first dinosaurs appeared, and began a long journey towards becoming some of the most successful animals ever to live on land. Their rise was not immediate. For millions of years, dinosaurs existed alongside many other groups of reptiles that were already well established. The story of dinosaur dominance was gradual, shaped by environmental change, evolutionary adaptation, and the shifting balance of life across the planet. The Earth of the early Triassic looked very different from the modern world. Most of the planet's land was united into a single immense supercontinent known as Pangaea. Vast stretches of connected land extended across enormous distances, creating environments unlike those seen today. Without the separation created by modern oceans, animals could move across huge regions, and environmental changes often affected entire continents at once. The interior of Pangaea experienced conditions that were often hot and dry. Large deserts occupied many regions, while seasonal weather patterns brought periods of intense rainfall followed by long, dry intervals. Rivers crossed broad plains and lakes formed in low-lying areas before disappearing as conditions changed. The climate was not uniform across the supercontinent, but many areas experienced environmental stresses that influenced the evolution of plants and animals. Life was still rebuilding after the devastation of the end Permian extinction. The species that survived found themselves in a world filled with ecological opportunities. Habitats that had once been occupied by extinct organisms became available to new groups. Over time, surviving lineages diversified and adapted to fill these vacant roles. This process of recovery unfolded slowly across millions of years, gradually increasing the complexity and diversity of ecosystems. During this period, reptiles became increasingly important members of terrestrial environments. Although reptiles had existed long before the Triassic, the changing conditions of the age favored their continued expansion. Many reptilian groups possessed characteristics that allowed them to thrive in the challenging environments of the time. Their skin reduced water loss, their eggs could be laid on land, and their bodies were well suited for life in a variety of habitats. These advantages helped reptiles spread into regions where other animals struggled to survive. The rise of reptile dominance was not the result of a single event. It was the outcome of countless generations of evolutionary change. Different reptile groups experimented with a wide range of body forms, lifestyles, and feeding strategies. Some became swift predators that hunted other animals. Others evolved into plant eaters capable of processing tough vegetation. Some developed heavily built bodies for protection, while others became increasingly agile and active. Among the most important reptile groups of the Triassic were the archosaurs. This group would eventually give rise to dinosaurs, pterosaurs, and crocodilian relatives. During the early stages of the Triassic, archosaurs were only one among many reptilian lineages. Over time, however, they began to achieve greater success in a variety of environments. The anatomy of archosaurs provided several advantages. Their limbs were positioned in ways that allowed more efficient movement compared with many earlier reptiles. Their bodies could support active lifestyles, and some lineages developed features that improved endurance and mobility. These traits helped archosaurs become increasingly important members of Triassic ecosystems. The Triassic world contained many archosaur relatives that were not dinosaurs. Some were large predators that occupied the role of top hunters in their ecosystems. Others were smaller and more specialized. Their diversity demonstrated that archosaurs were rapidly expanding into many ecological niches, long before dinosaurs became dominant. As archosaurs diversified, other reptilian groups also continued to flourish. Various forms occupied rivers, floodplains, forests, and dry inland environments. Competition among these groups drove further evolutionary change. Natural selection favored traits that improved survival, reproduction, and resource use. Over long spans of time, these pressures shaped the development of increasingly specialized species. Plant life also played a crucial role in the transformation of Triassic ecosystems. Forests gradually recovered from the earlier extinction crisis. Conifers became widespread in many regions, while seed ferns and other plants contributed to the growing diversity of terrestrial vegetation. As plant communities expanded, they provided food and shelter for increasing numbers of animals. The recovery of vegetation supported larger populations of herbivores. Plant-eating animals became important components of food webs, creating opportunities for predators to evolve alongside them. This interaction between plants, herbivores, and carnivores helped establish more complex ecosystems than those that existed immediately after the mass extinction. Over millions of years, environmental conditions continued to change. Volcanic activity influenced landscapes and atmospheric composition. Shifts in climate altered rainfall patterns and affected the distribution of habitats. Rivers changed course, lakes expanded and contracted, and ecosystems responded to these ongoing changes. Species that adapted successfully survived and spread, while others disappeared. Within this dynamic world, the earliest dinosaurs began to emerge. Fossil evidence indicates that dinosaurs evolved from small archosaur ancestors during the middle portion of the Triassic period. These first dinosaurs were generally much smaller than the famous giants that would appear later. Many were lightly built animals capable of moving quickly across the landscape. The earliest dinosaurs did not immediately dominate their environments. They represented only a small fraction of the animal communities in which they lived. Larger reptilian groups often remained more abundant and influential. Nevertheless, dinosaurs possessed characteristics that would later contribute to their success. Their upright posture allowed efficient movement, and their skeletal structure supported active lifestyles. Some of the earliest known dinosaurs were relatively small predators. They hunted smaller animals and occupied ecological roles that were not yet crowded by larger competitors. Their agility and mobility allowed them to exploit opportunities in changing environments. As generations passed, dinosaur populations expanded into new regions and diversified into additional forms. The evolution of dinosaurs occurred during a period of significant experimentation among archosaurs. Numerous lineages developed different body plans and survival strategies. Some groups flourished for millions of years before eventually disappearing. Others laid the foundations for future evolutionary success. Dinosaurs were one branch among many, but their history would ultimately become one of the most remarkable stories in the fossil record. The spread of dinosaurs was aided by the geography of Pangaea. Because the continents remained connected, populations could disperse across extensive areas. Fossil discoveries from different parts of the world reveal that early dinosaurs and their relatives were able to move across connected land areas and spread into regions that matched their biological needs. This wide distribution helped early dinosaurs and other archosaurs establish populations in many environments, even while they remained relatively small members of the ecosystems. As time moved forward through the Triassic period, the structure of ecosystems continued to change. Reptile groups that had survived the earlier mass extinction kept expanding and adapting. Many of these reptiles became highly specialized in their feeding habits, movement patterns, and reproductive strategies. Some developed stronger jaws and teeth for processing tougher food sources. Others evolved lighter bodies that supported faster movement across open terrain. These changes were gradual and accumulated over many generations. The diversity of reptile life during this time included many lineages that are no longer present today. Large armored reptiles lived in some regions, while others were built for aquatic environments and spent much of their lives in rivers and lakes. There were also reptiles adapted for digging and living underground, as well as forms that spent their lives in dense vegetation. Each group occupied specific ecological roles shaped by the conditions of the Triassic world. The dominance of reptiles in terrestrial environments increased as they became more abundant and more varied. This rise was supported by the lack of competition from many groups that had disappeared during the earlier extinction event. The absence of these groups left ecological space that reptiles gradually filled. Over time, reptile communities became more complex, with different species interacting in food chains and ecological networks. The climate of the Triassic continued to influence evolutionary change. Many regions of Pangaea experienced dry conditions that limited the growth of dense forests. Plants adapted to these environments became important sources of food for herbivorous reptiles. Conifers were especially widespread and formed large parts of the vegetation in many areas. These plants were able to survive in dry climates and produce seeds that allowed them to reproduce under a variety of conditions. As plant life expanded, herbivorous reptiles increased in both size and diversity. Some developed specialized teeth for cutting and processing plant material. Others evolved digestive systems capable of breaking down tough plant fibers. These adaptations allowed them to take advantage of the growing availability of vegetation across different regions of the supercontinent. The increase in herbivores created opportunities for carnivorous reptiles. Predator species evolved physical features that supported hunting and capturing prey. These included stronger limbs, sharper teeth, and improved sensory abilities. The relationship between plant-eating and meat-eating reptiles contributed to the development of more complex ecosystems, with energy flowing through multiple levels of life forms. During this period of ecological development, archosaurs continued to diversify into many different forms. Some archosaurs became dominant predators in certain environments. Others remained small and adaptable, living in a variety of habitats. the group as a whole showed a wide range of body structures and ecological strategies. This diversity played an important role in shaping the direction of future evolution. The earliest dinosaurs emerged within this broader archosaur expansion. This diversity played an important role in shaping the direction of future evolution. The earliest dinosaurs emerged within this broader archosaur expansion. Their origins can be traced to small ancestral species that shared characteristics with other early reptiles. Over time, these ancestral forms developed traits that distinguish them from related groups. These traits included changes in leg structure, posture, and movement patterns. Dinosaurs developed limbs that supported an upright stance, allowing their bodies to be carried more directly above their legs. This change in posture influenced how dinosaurs moved and interacted with their environment. It allowed for more efficient movement across land surfaces and supported sustained activity. These features were present in the earliest dinosaurs, although they were still developing and becoming more refined over time. Early dinosaur species were generally small and occupied limited ecological roles at first. They lived alongside many other reptiles that were already well established. These included large predators, herbivores, and semi-aquatic species that dominated many ecosystems. Dinosaurs existed within these communities without immediately replacing the groups that surrounded them. As the Triassic period continued, environmental changes played a role in shaping evolutionary patterns. Volcanic activity influenced atmospheric conditions and contributed to changes in temperature and rainfall. These shifts affected plant growth and the distribution of habitats across Pangaea. Some regions became drier, while others experienced increased rainfall at different times. These environmental variations created changing conditions for survival. Species that were able to adjust to new environments continued to persist, while others declined. Dinosaurs and other archosaurs gradually expanded into areas where conditions supported their growth and reproduction. Their ability to adapt to different habitats allowed them to spread into a variety of ecological settings. Fossil evidence shows that early dinosaurs were present in different parts of Pangaea during the later stages of the Triassic. Their remains have been found in regions that today correspond to multiple continents. This distribution reflects the connected nature of the ancient supercontinent and the ability of species to move across large distances. At the same time, many other reptile groups continued to thrive. Some maintained dominance in specific environments, while others coexisted with emerging dinosaur populations. The balance of life during this period was shaped by continuous interactions between species competing for food, space, and resources. The structure of ecosystems during this time included multiple layers of life forms. Plants formed the base of food chains, providing energy for herbivores. Herbivores supported carnivores, and smaller organisms played roles in decomposition and nutrient cycling. These systems were constantly influenced by environmental changes and the evolution of new species. The development of dinosaur lineages occurred within this broader ecological framework. As they diversified, dinosaurs began to explore new feeding strategies and movement patterns. Some remained small and agile, while others gradually increased in size. These changes happened over long periods and were influenced by available resources and environmental conditions. Other archosaur groups also continued to evolve during this time. Some lineages developed features similar to crocodile-like animals, with adaptations for aquatic or semi-aquatic life. Others became fast-moving land predators that competed with early dinosaurs in certain regions. This diversity created a complex ecological landscape where multiple groups interacted in different ways. The end of the Triassic period was marked by another major environmental shift. Changes in climate and volcanic activity once again affected global ecosystems. Many species were unable to adapt to these new conditions and disappeared. This event reshaped the structure of life on Earth and removed many of the reptile groups that had been prominent during earlier stages of the Mesozoic era. Dinosaurs, however, were among the groups that survived this transition. Their presence in the following period allowed them to expand further into ecosystems that had been left open by the disappearance of other reptiles. This set the stage for the continued development of dinosaur diversity in later periods of Earth's history. The Triassic period began after a major change in Earth's living world and its surface conditions. It started about 252 million years ago and lasted until about 201 million years ago. During this long span of time, the planet's land, seas, climate patterns, and living organisms went through large stages of change. Many regions of land were joined into a large connected landmass. This landmass affected how air moved, how heat spread, and how dry or wet different regions became. At the beginning of this period, large numbers of living species that had existed earlier were no longer present. This left open ecological space across land and sea environments. New groups of animals and plants developed within this changed environment. Reptiles became a major part of land life. Some reptiles moved into different ways of living, with some remaining close to water sources and others spreading across dry land. The first dinosaurs appeared during this period. These early dinosaurs were not dominant in all environments. They were part of a wide range of reptiles and other animals sharing land ecosystems. The land surface during this period had wide dry regions. Many areas experienced limited rainfall. Some regions had seasonal changes in water availability. Rivers and lakes were present in different locations, but their distribution was uneven. Vegetation grew mainly in areas where water was available for longer periods. Plant life included seed plants and fern-like plants. These plants grew in clusters in suitable regions rather than covering all land surfaces evenly. The atmosphere during this period contained levels of oxygen and carbon dioxide that influenced living conditions. Temperature changes occurred across different parts of the planet. Some regions were very hot for long periods. Other regions experienced periods of cooler conditions. The movement of air masses influenced rainfall patterns. Because most land was joined together, large interior areas were far from ocean moisture sources, which contributed to dry conditions in many inland regions. Reptiles developed many body structures that supported survival in these environments. Some had strong skin coverings that reduced water loss. Some developed efficient movement systems that allowed travel across dry land in search of food and water. Other reptiles remained connected to water environments, such as lakes, rivers, and coastal regions. These different ways of living created a wide range of reptile forms. Early dinosaurs appeared as part of a group of reptiles that shared certain skeletal features. They had upright limb positions that allowed movement with the body supported above the ground. This body structure allowed more efficient movement across land surfaces. These early dinosaurs were generally small or medium in size. They lived in environments where they competed with many other reptiles for food and space. Their diets included plants and small animals depending on the species. The environments where early dinosaurs lived included dry plains, forested areas near water sources, and regions with seasonal rainfall. These environments changed over time as climate patterns shifted. In some regions, plant growth increased during wetter periods, providing food sources for herbivorous animals. In drier periods, food sources became limited, and animals moved across larger distances in search of vegetation or prey. Marine environments also existed during this period. Oceans contained reptiles that adapted to aquatic life. These marine reptiles had body shapes suitable for movement in water. Fish species were also present in ocean ecosystems. Coral-like organisms and other sea life formed structures in shallow waters. These marine systems were affected by changes in temperature and water chemistry during the period. The arrangement of land during this time played an important role in shaping ecosystems. The large connected landmass reduced separation between animal populations in different regions. This allowed movement of species across wide distances. However, the interior dry regions created environmental challenges. Some species remained near coastal regions where water availability was more stable. Others adapted to inland dry environments. Plant life during this period included seed-producing plants that spread across different regions. Conifer-like plants became more widespread in certain areas. These plants had structures that reduced water loss and supported survival in dry conditions. Fern-like plants continued to grow in wetter regions. Plant distribution was closely linked to rainfall and soil moisture levels. The soil composition in different regions affected plant growth. In some areas, soil contained nutrients that supported plant clusters. In other regions, soil conditions limited plant development. Weathering processes broke down rocks and contributed to soil formation over long periods. Wind and water movement also shaped land surfaces and influenced sediment distribution. Animal life during this period included a wide range of reptiles. Some reptiles had large body sizes, while others remained small. Some were carnivorous and fed on other animals. Others were herbivorous and fed on plant material. There were also omnivorous species that consumed both plants and animals. These feeding patterns created complex food relationships within ecosystems. Early dinosaurs were part of this broader group of reptiles. Their presence increased gradually over time. Fossil evidence shows that they existed in different regions of the world during this period. Their skeletal structures show that they had adaptations for movement on land. Their limb placement allowed them to support body weight efficiently during walking and running movements. Environmental pressures influenced how species survived during this period. Water availability was a major factor in survival. Animals needed access to water sources for drinking and for supporting plant growth in their habitats. Seasonal changes in rainfall caused shifts in animal movement patterns. Some species moved between regions depending on resource availability. Temperature variation also influenced living conditions. Some regions experienced long periods of high heat. These conditions affected plant growth and animal activity. Animals often became active during cooler parts of the day in some regions. Other regions had more moderate conditions that supported continuous activity. The development of early dinosaurs included changes in skull structure, teeth arrangement, and limb movement. Some species had teeth shaped for slicing plant material. Others had teeth designed for gripping and tearing flesh. These adaptations supported different feeding strategies. Limb movement allowed some dinosaurs to move quickly across open areas, while others moved in slower patterns. Reptile diversity during this period included species that resembled crocodile-like forms, lizard-like forms, and other body structures. Some reptiles had armor-like body coverings. Others had long bodies suited for movement through vegetation or water. This diversity reflected adaptation to different environmental conditions. Fossil evidence from this period shows that many animals lived near river systems. Rivers provided water and supported plant growth along their banks. These river environments created zones of higher biological activity. Flooding events occurred in some regions, which affected land surfaces and redistributed sediments. These processes influenced fossil preservation in certain areas. The early stages of dinosaur development occurred alongside other reptile groups that remained dominant in many environments. Dinosaurs were one group among many. Over time, they expanded into more ecological roles. Their presence increased in different regions as environmental conditions changed. The movement of continents during this period influenced climate and ecosystems. Land connections allowed species to spread across large areas. Mountain ranges existed in some regions and affected local weather patterns. Elevation changes influenced temperature and rainfall distribution. These geographical features shaped habitat diversity. Water bodies such as lakes and inland seas existed in different regions of the landmass. These water bodies changed size over time due to climate variation. Some lakes expanded during wetter periods and reduced in size during dry periods. Sediments accumulated in these areas and preserved remains of plants and animals. The air circulation patterns across the large landmass influenced desert formation in some regions. Dry air conditions developed in interior zones. These dry zones had limited vegetation and lower animal density compared to wetter regions. Species living in these areas developed adaptations for water conservation and heat tolerance. Some reptiles developed faster growth rates and shorter life cycles. These traits supported survival in environments where conditions changed frequently. Other species developed longer life cycles and slower growth patterns. These differences reflected adaptation to specific environmental conditions. The early dinosaurs lived in ecosystems that included predators and prey relationships. Carnivorous reptiles hunted herbivorous reptiles and other animals. Herbivorous species fed on plant material available in their environments. These interactions influenced population distribution and movement patterns. Plant reproduction during this period involved seed dispersal through wind and other natural processes. Seeds allowed plants to spread across suitable environments. In wetter regions, plant density increased and formed localized vegetation zones. These zones provided food and shelter for animal species. Climate shifts during the Triassic period affected ecosystems over long time intervals. Some shifts occurred gradually, while others occurred in shorter periods. These changes influenced water distribution, plant growth, and animal movement. Species that adapted to changing conditions were able to persist in different environments. The structure of early dinosaur bones shows characteristics that supported movement efficiency. Hollow bone structures in some species reduced body weight. Strong joint structures supported limb movement. These features allowed movement across varied terrain, including dry plains and forested areas. Reptile communities during this period included interactions between different species sharing the same habitats. Some species occupied similar ecological roles. Others occupied different roles depending on feeding habits and movement patterns. These community structures formed complex ecosystems. The fossil record from this period includes remains of bones, footprints, and plant material. Footprints show movement patterns across different land surfaces. Some trackways indicate movement in groups, while others show individual movement. These traces provide evidence of behavior and environmental conditions. Volcanic activity occurred in certain regions during this period. This activity released materials into the atmosphere and affected local environments. Lava flows and ash deposits changed land surfaces and influenced soil composition. These events affected plant and animal life in nearby areas. The early dinosaur presence increased in diversity over time within this period. Different species appeared in different regions. Some species remained localized, while others spread across larger areas. This distribution reflected environmental conditions and habitat availability. Rivers continued to play an important role in shaping landscapes. River channels changed course over time, creating new landforms. Sediment deposition in river valleys created fertile zones that supported plant growth. These areas supported higher concentrations of animal life. The interaction between land, water, atmosphere, and living organisms created a complex system of environmental conditions. Each component influenced the others over time. Changes in one factor affected multiple aspects of the environment. The first true dinosaurs emerged during a long stretch of Earth's history, when life on land was already diverse and constantly changing. These early dinosaurs belonged to a group of reptiles that developed new body structures and new ways of living that allowed them to survive in many different land environments. Their appearance was not sudden in a single moment, but came from a slow process of biological change across many generations. Over time, small shifts in bone structure, posture, movement, breathing systems, and reproduction built a foundation for a new kind of land animal that would later spread across many regions of the planet. The earliest true dinosaurs were part of a broader group of reptiles known as archosaurs. This group also included other reptile lineages that lived alongside them in the same environments. Within this large group, some populations began to develop features that gradually set them apart. One of the most important changes involved the way their legs were positioned under their bodies. Earlier reptiles often had legs that extended out to the sides, which required a sprawling posture during movement. In early dinosaurs, the legs shifted into a more upright position directly beneath the body. This adjustment allowed the body weight to be supported in a different way, making movement more efficient on land surfaces that varied in texture and firmness. The structure of the skeleton in these early dinosaurs also showed gradual modifications. The bones became shaped in ways that supported active movement and sustained motion. The hips developed a strong connection with the spine and hind limbs, allowing controlled movement of the body during walking and running. The backbone was formed with a pattern of joints and connections that provided both stability and flexibility. This balance allowed early dinosaurs to move in a coordinated manner across uneven terrain without losing structural support in the body. Breathing systems in early dinosaurs also played an important role in their development. Their respiratory structures were arranged in a way that supported continuous airflow through the lungs. Air moved through a system of passages that allowed efficient oxygen intake. This system helped maintain activity levels during movement over longer periods. The presence of air-filled spaces within some bones reduced body weight while maintaining strength. These internal structures supported movement and helped reduce the energy required for basic motion. The skull structure of early dinosaurs changed in ways that affected feeding behavior. The jaw bones were arranged to allow controlled movement when opening and closing the mouth. The teeth were shaped according to diet, which varied among different early dinosaur groups. Some had teeth suited for slicing plant material, while others had teeth adapted for gripping and tearing small animals or insects. The jaw muscles attached in positions that allowed steady force during feeding, which supported different dietary habits across environments. The skin of early dinosaurs is not fully known in detail, but evidence from related species suggests that the outer covering was likely composed of scales. These scales provided protection from physical damage and environmental exposure. In some early forms, small changes in skin structure may have supported temperature regulation through heat exchange with the environment. This was important in environments where daily temperature shifts were common. The outer covering also helped reduce water loss from the body during dry conditions. The nervous system of early dinosaurs supported coordinated movement and sensory awareness. The brain was relatively small compared to body size, but it was organized in a way that allowed processing of environmental signals. Vision played an important role in detecting movement and changes in surroundings. The eyes were positioned to provide a broad field of view which helped in detecting food sources and potential threats. Other senses, including smell and hearing, were also developed to assist in locating resources and navigating environments. Early dinosaurs reproduced by laying eggs. Reproduction involved the development of protective shells around the eggs, which allowed them to be placed in nests on land. The structure of the eggs supported the developing embryo by maintaining moisture and allowing gas exchange. Nesting behavior varied among different early dinosaur groups. Some may have placed eggs in shallow ground depressions, while others may have used vegetation or soil to protect the eggs from environmental conditions. Parental involvement in early dinosaurs is not fully known, but reproductive strategies were adapted to increase the survival of offspring in different habitats. The growth patterns of early dinosaurs involved stages of rapid development during early life, followed by slower growth as maturity was reached. Bone structure shows evidence of growth rings that indicate changes in development over time. These patterns suggest that early dinosaurs passed through distinct life stages, each requiring different levels of energy intake and environmental adaptation. Juvenile individuals likely had different movement abilities and feeding requirements compared to fully developed adults. Early dinosaurs occupied a range of land environments. These environments included dry regions, areas with seasonal rainfall, and regions with varied vegetation. The ability to move efficiently on land allowed early dinosaurs to access different sources of food and water. Their posture and limb structure made it possible to travel across open ground, forested areas, and uneven terrain. This movement capability allowed them to spread across different ecological zones. The digestive systems of early dinosaurs were adapted to their diets. Plant-eating forms developed longer digestive tracts that allowed the breakdown of tough plant material. The presence of fermentation processes in parts of the digestive system helped extract nutrients from fibrous food sources. Meat-eating forms had shorter digestive systems that processed protein-rich food more directly. These digestive differences allowed early dinosaurs to use a wide range of available food resources. The metabolic systems of early dinosaurs supported active lifestyles. Energy was processed in ways that allowed sustained movement and growth. The regulation of body temperature may have involved a combination of internal processes and environmental interactions. This allowed early dinosaurs to remain active during different times of the day and under varying environmental conditions. The balance of energy use and intake supported survival in habitats where conditions could shift over time. The limbs of early dinosaurs showed clear organization into distinct functional parts. The upper and lower sections of the limbs were connected by joints that allowed controlled movement. The muscles attached to these bones provided force for walking, running, and other forms of locomotion. The structure of the feet supported contact with the ground and helped distribute body weight. Some early dinosaurs developed 3 main weight-bearing toes, which contributed to stability during movement. The tail of early dinosaurs played a role in balance and movement. It extended from the rear of the body and contained a series of vertebrae that provided flexibility and support. During movement, the tail helped maintain body alignment and stability. In some early forms, the tail also served as a point of muscle attachment that supported locomotion. The structure of the tail varied among different groups, reflecting different movement patterns and body shapes. The environment in which early dinosaurs lived included other reptiles, early mammal relatives, amphibians, and various insect groups. These organisms formed complex ecological systems where food sources and habitats were shared. Early dinosaurs interacted with these organisms through feeding relationships and environmental competition for space and resources. Their ability to move efficiently across land surfaces allowed them to access different ecological zones within these systems. The bone microstructure of early dinosaurs shows patterns of growth and development that reflect their biological processes. The arrangement of bone tissue indicates periods of active growth and periods of slower development. Blood vessel patterns within the bones suggest active circulation and nutrient delivery. These internal structures supported continuous body maintenance and allowed the animals to respond to environmental changes. The posture of early dinosaurs contributed to their movement efficiency. With limbs positioned beneath the body, weight was distributed in a balanced manner during standing and walking. This posture reduced strain on the body during movement across land surfaces. The spinal column supported the upright structure and allowed controlled shifts in body position during locomotion. This arrangement provided a stable foundation for movement in multiple directions. Early dinosaurs also developed adaptations in their sensory organs that supported survival. The inner ear structure contributed to balance and spatial awareness. This allowed the body to maintain coordination during movement over uneven ground. The olfactory system supported detection of food sources and environmental cues. Sensory input from multiple systems was integrated to guide behavior and movement decisions. The evolutionary path that led to early dinosaurs involved gradual changes in many body systems. Small modifications in bone structure, muscle attachment, respiratory function, and sensory development accumulated over long periods. These changes occurred within populations of reptiles that lived in shared environments. As these traits became more established, early dinosaurs formed a distinct group with consistent anatomical characteristics. The diversity among early dinosaurs began to increase as different populations adapted to local environments. Some developed features that supported herbivorous diets, while others developed features suited for carnivorous feeding. These dietary differences influenced skull shape, tooth structure, and digestive organization. Limb proportions also varied according to movement needs in different habitats. The skin and body covering of early dinosaurs likely provided protection against environmental factors, such as sunlight exposure, physical abrasion, and water loss. The arrangement of scales or similar structures formed a protective layer over the body surface. This covering also interacted with internal temperature regulation systems, supporting stability during environmental changes. The fossil record of early dinosaurs shows evidence of their presence in multiple land environments. Fossilized bones provide information about skeletal structure, growth patterns, and body proportions. Trackways preserved in ancient ground surfaces show movement patterns and group behavior in some cases. These traces provide information about how early dinosaurs moved across land surfaces and how their limbs interacted with the ground. The development of early dinosaurs also involved changes in reproductive timing and life cycles. The timing of egg-laying, incubation periods, and juvenile development stages were adapted to environmental conditions. These reproductive strategies supported the continuation of populations across different regions. The ability to produce multiple offspring increased the chances of survival in changing environments. The circulation system of early dinosaurs supported the distribution of oxygen and nutrients throughout the body. The heart structure was organized to maintain steady blood flow. This system supported sustained activity and growth. Blood vessels reached muscles, organs, and bone tissue, ensuring that all parts of the body received necessary resources for function. The muscle structure of early dinosaurs was attached to the skeleton in ways that supported controlled movement. Muscle groups worked in coordination to produce walking, running, and turning motions. The strength of these muscles allowed movement across different land surfaces. Muscle attachment points on bones indicate the direction and force of movement during life. The ecological role of early dinosaurs involved participation in food chains and environmental interactions. Plant-eating forms consumed vegetation, while meat-eating forms consumed other animals. These interactions influence population distribution and movement patterns across landscapes. Early dinosaurs occupied positions within ecosystems that required constant interaction with both living organisms and physical environmental conditions. The development of early dinosaurs continued over long periods, leading to increasing variation in body size, shape, and function. These changes occurred as populations adapted to different environmental conditions. The gradual accumulation of biological traits resulted in a group of animals with a wide range of physical and functional characteristics. The breakup of the supercontinent known as Pangaea was a major geological event that reshaped land, oceans, climate patterns, and the living conditions on Earth over a very long span of time. This event took place across an extended period, beginning roughly 200 million years ago, during a time when dinosaurs were already present and slowly diversifying into different forms. Pangaea was a single large mass of land that contained most of the Earth's continents joined together. As time passed, this landmass began to split into separate parts through gradual movement of the Earth's crust. These movements occurred through the shifting of large sections of the outer layer of the planet, which are called tectonic plates. The separation of these plates caused the land to break apart into smaller continents, and these continents slowly moved into different positions over millions of years. Before the breakup began, many land areas were connected in a continuous stretch, which allowed animals and plants to move across wide regions without encountering large ocean barriers. Dinosaurs lived in this connected environment during the early part of their history. As the land started to split, the environments where dinosaurs lived also began to change. New seas formed between separating landmasses, and these seas gradually widened as the land continued to move apart. These changes altered the distribution of land environments and created new regions with different conditions. The movement of land was slow and continuous. Over a long period, cracks formed in the crust of the Earth, and molten rock from beneath the surface rose into these cracks. This process caused sections of land to shift apart. As separation continued, the single landmass began forming multiple large pieces that drifted in different directions. Each piece carried living organisms, including dinosaurs, plants, and smaller animals. Once separated, these groups of organisms were no longer able to mix freely across the entire land area. The separation of land created changes in temperature patterns across different regions. Areas that were once part of a continuous landmass began to experience different environmental conditions due to changes in ocean currents and wind movement. The presence of new seaways influenced the movement of heat and moisture across the planet. Some regions became more humid while others became drier. These variations in climate influenced the environments where dinosaurs lived and affected how they survived in different regions. As land masses moved apart, isolated groups of dinosaurs formed in different regions. These groups lived in environments that were no longer connected to other dinosaur populations. Over time, this isolation led to differences in physical traits, behavior, and feeding habits. Dinosaurs in one region adapted to the conditions of that specific environment, while dinosaurs in other regions adapted to their own local conditions. This separation influenced how dinosaur communities developed across the planet. The breakup also influenced plant life, which played an important role in dinosaur environments. Different types of vegetation began to grow in separate regions due to changes in climate and soil conditions. Some regions developed dense plant growth, while others had more open landscapes. Herbivorous dinosaurs depended on these plants for food, and changes in vegetation affected their feeding patterns and movement. Carnivorous dinosaurs also adjusted their behavior based on the availability of herbivorous prey in their regions. Ocean formation was another important result of the breakup. As land separated, water filled the gaps between the drifting continents. These newly formed seas expanded over time and influenced weather patterns across the planet. The movement of water also affected temperature distribution, which in turn influenced habitats on land. Coastal regions developed in areas where land met the expanding oceans, creating new environments for both marine and terrestrial life. During the early stages of separation, some land connections still existed between large land blocks. Dinosaurs could still move across certain areas during these early phases, but as separation continued, these connections were gradually lost. Once the land connections disappeared completely, dinosaur populations became fully separated in different parts of the world. This separation meant that groups of dinosaurs developed independently in different regions without mixing with other groups. The changing positions of continents also influenced seasonal patterns. As land masses moved into different latitudes, the amount of sunlight and temperature experienced by each region changed over time. Some areas became more strongly affected by seasonal changes, while others experienced more stable conditions. Dinosaurs living in these regions had to adjust their life cycles, reproduction patterns, and feeding behavior according to these environmental shifts. The breakup process also influenced the formation of mountain ranges. As land masses shifted, sections of the crust were pushed upward in certain areas. These raised regions created new landscapes with higher elevations. The presence of mountains influenced wind flow, rainfall distribution, and local climate conditions. Dinosaurs living near these areas experienced environments that differed from lowland regions, which affected their movement and survival strategies. In regions where land continued to split, rift zones formed. These zones were areas where the crust was actively pulling apart. Volcanic activity often occurred in these regions due to magma rising from beneath the surface. Volcanic materials spread across surrounding land areas, altering soil composition and affecting plant growth. Dinosaurs living near these regions encountered landscapes that were continuously changing due to geological activity. As continents drifted farther apart, ocean basins expanded. These basins became large bodies of water separating landmasses. The formation of these ocean basins played a major role in shaping global climate systems. Ocean currents developed within these basins and moved heat energy across the planet. These currents influenced rainfall patterns on land, affecting the types of ecosystems that formed in different regions. The separation of land also influenced the availability of migration routes for dinosaurs. Before the breakup progressed significantly, migration across wide regions was possible through connected land areas. After separation, migration became limited to specific regions that remained connected for some time. Eventually, when all connections were lost, dinosaur populations remained restricted to their own continents. This restriction influenced how populations grew and changed over time. Fossil evidence shows that similar types of dinosaurs appeared in different regions during early stages of the breakup. This suggests that these dinosaurs once shared connected habitats before separation occurred. As time passed, fossil records indicate differences between dinosaur groups in separated regions. These differences developed as populations adapted to their local environments over long periods. The movement of continents also affected sea levels. As ocean basins formed and expanded, water levels changed across different regions. Some coastal areas were covered by shallow seas, while other regions remained dry land. These changes created new environments where marine reptiles and other aquatic organisms lived alongside dinosaurs near coastal regions. Dinosaurs in these areas had access to a mix of land and marine resources. The breakup influenced atmospheric circulation patterns as well. The changing arrangement of continents altered how air moved around the planet. Wind systems shifted due to the new positions of land and sea. These shifts affected rainfall distribution and temperature patterns across different regions. Dinosaurs experienced these changes through their local environments, which influenced their daily life conditions. As separation continued over millions of years, new ocean pathways formed between continents. These pathways allowed marine life to move between different ocean regions. While dinosaurs remained on land, the presence of these marine pathways influenced coastal ecosystems. Changes in marine ecosystems indirectly affected terrestrial environments through shifts in food chains and ecological balance. In some regions, landmasses remained connected for longer periods before fully separating. These extended connections allowed dinosaur populations to remain in contact for longer periods. Once these final connections broke apart, full separation of populations occurred. After this point, each continent developed its own unique dinosaur communities. The breakup also influenced the distribution of deserts, forests, and other land environments. As continents moved into new positions, some regions became drier due to reduced rainfall, while others became wetter due to increased moisture from oceans. These environmental changes influenced the types of plants that could grow in each region, which in turn influenced the types of dinosaurs that could survive there. Volcanic activity associated with continental separation released gases into the atmosphere. These gases influenced climate conditions over long periods. Changes in atmospheric composition affected temperature levels and weather patterns. Dinosaurs living during these periods experienced shifting environmental conditions that influenced their growth and survival. The slow movement of continents continued over a vast period during which dinosaur groups evolved independently in different regions. Some groups developed traits suited for dense vegetation environments, while others adapted to open landscapes. These adaptations occurred gradually as environmental conditions changed due to shifting land and climate systems. As ocean basins widened further, the distance between landmasses increased. This separation reduced the possibility of interaction between dinosaur populations from different continents. Each isolated region developed its own ecological systems, with distinct combinations of plants and animals. Dinosaurs played a central role in these systems as both herbivores and carnivores. The breakup process also influenced river systems. As land changed shape, river paths shifted and new drainage systems formed. Some rivers changed direction due to uplifted land or sinking regions of crust. These changes affected water availability in different regions, influencing vegetation growth and animal movement patterns, including those of dinosaurs. In coastal areas, the interaction between land and sea created complex environments. These areas changed continuously as sea levels rose and fell due to geological activity. Dinosaurs living near these regions experienced environments that included both land-based and marine-influence conditions. These environments supported a variety of plant types and animal species. Over extended periods, the separation of land led to long-term isolation of ecosystems. This isolation meant that evolutionary processes in one region occurred independently of those in other regions. Dinosaur populations adapted to their specific environments without influence from populations on other continents. This independent development contributed to the diversity of dinosaur forms across the planet. The Jurassic period is a long span of Earth history that took place after the end of the Triassic period and before the start of the Cretaceous period. It began about 201 million years ago and continued until about 145 million years ago. During this long stretch of time, Earth went through many changes in land, sea, air, and living organisms. Dinosaurs became widely spread across many regions of the planet and developed many forms. The land surfaces were arranged in large connected areas that slowly shifted and changed shape through geological movement. Seas covered many low regions and expanded into shallow environments where marine life developed in large numbers. The air supported many flying reptiles and early forms of birds. Plant life grew in dense forms across land areas, shaping habitats for many animals. At the start of this period, life on land was already recovering from the end of the Triassic extinction event. Many groups of reptiles had survived and continued to develop new forms. Dinosaurs became more established in ecosystems across land regions. These animals lived in many environments, including dry regions, forested areas, river systems, and coastal zones. Their body structures developed in different ways, allowing them to occupy many ecological roles. Some dinosaurs moved on 2 legs while others moved on 4 legs. Some had long necks, while others had shorter necks and strong skulls designed for feeding on tough plant material or hunting other animals. Their bones were strong and light in structure, supporting movement and growth. The land surfaces during this time were not separated into the same arrangement as seen in later Earth history. Large connected landmasses existed, and these landmasses slowly shifted due to movement beneath the Earth's crust. This movement created rifts, basins, and shallow seas. Coastal regions changed shape as water entered low areas. River systems formed across many regions, carrying sediments that built up fertile ground in some areas. These environments allowed vegetation to spread widely, providing food sources for herbivorous dinosaurs and habitats for smaller animals. Plant life during this period included many types of ferns, cycads, conifers, and ginkgo-like plants. These plants grew in many environments, including damp lowlands and dry uplands. Forested regions contained tall conifer trees that formed dense plant communities. Ferns grew in moist environments near water sources. Cycads appeared in many warm regions and formed part of the ground vegetation. These plant groups provided the main food supply for many large plant-eating dinosaurs. Plant growth patterns followed seasonal cycles influenced by climate conditions and rainfall changes. Climate conditions during the Jurassic period were generally warm in many regions of the planet. Ice sheets at the poles were not present during this time. This allowed vegetation and animal life to spread into areas that were previously less inhabited. Rainfall patterns varied across different regions, creating wet environments in some areas and drier conditions in others. These variations influenced the distribution of plant life and the movement of animals across land regions. Seasonal changes affected breeding patterns, migration routes, and feeding behavior of many species. Dinosaurs during this period developed into many different groups. Some dinosaurs had long necks that allowed them to reach plant material from various heights. These dinosaurs lived in herds and moved across wide land areas in search of plant resources. Their bodies were supported by strong limbs and thick bones. Other dinosaurs developed sharp teeth and strong jaws designed for feeding on other animals. These carnivorous dinosaurs moved through forests and open areas in search of prey. Their limbs allowed them to move with speed and agility across different terrains. Marine environments during the Jurassic period contained many types of living organisms. Shallow seas covered parts of continental shelves, creating environments rich in nutrients. Marine reptiles lived in these waters, including large forms that moved through open seas and coastal areas. Fish species developed in many forms, including fast-moving types and bottom-dwelling types. Ammonites, which were shelled marine organisms, lived in large numbers and occupied many parts of the ocean. Coral reefs developed in warm, shallow waters, providing habitats for many marine organisms. Flying reptiles during this period included groups that developed strong wings supported by elongated finger bones. These animals moved through the air and used coastal areas, cliffs, and forested regions for nesting and feeding. Early bird-like creatures also appeared during this time. These creatures had feathered bodies and developed abilities for flight in various forms. They lived in forested regions and coastal zones where food sources were available in abundance. Their feeding habits included insects, small animals, and plant material. The structure of ecosystems during the Jurassic period involved many interconnected life forms. Plants provided food for herbivorous dinosaurs. Herbivorous dinosaurs supported carnivorous dinosaurs. Marine life formed complex food systems within oceans and seas. Flying reptiles and early birds interacted with both land and marine environments through feeding and nesting activities. These systems changed gradually over time due to environmental shifts, volcanic activity, and changes in sea levels. Volcanic activity occurred in several regions during this period. This activity released gases and lava onto land surfaces. Volcanic eruptions influenced local environments by changing soil composition and affecting vegetation growth. Ash deposits created new layers of ground material that affected plant distribution. Over long periods, volcanic regions developed new landforms that became part of habitats for living organisms. These geological processes continued throughout the entire Jurassic period. Sedimentary rock layers formed during this time contain many fossils that provide information about life forms that existed during this period. These fossils include bones of dinosaurs, shells of marine organisms, impressions of plants, and remains of flying reptiles. Fossil deposits are found in many regions of the world, indicating that life was widespread across different environments. These fossil records show details about body structures, feeding patterns, and movement of organisms. The early part of the Jurassic period saw the continuation of dinosaur diversification. new groups of dinosaurs appeared and spread into different environments. Some groups developed long necks and tails that supported balance and feeding behavior. Some groups developed armor-like body structures that provided protection. Some groups developed strong hind limbs that supported upright movement. These variations allowed dinosaurs to occupy many ecological roles across land environments. River systems during this period carried large amounts of sediment from inland areas to coastal regions. These river systems created floodplains where plant life grew in dense forms. Floodplains provided fertile environments that supported large populations of herbivorous dinosaurs. Water sources such as lakes and wetlands also supported diverse ecosystems. These water-rich environments attracted many types of animals for feeding and breeding activities. As time progressed through the Jurassic period, changes in sea levels influenced coastal environments. Some regions became covered by shallow seas, while other regions became exposed land areas. These changes affected plant distribution and animal movement patterns. Coastal ecosystems developed rich biological communities that included marine reptiles, fish, and invertebrates. These ecosystems remained active throughout the period and supported many life forms. The middle portion of the Jurassic period involved continued development of dinosaur groups. Large plant-eating dinosaurs expanded their range across many land areas. Their feeding behavior involved consuming large amounts of vegetation each day. Carnivorous dinosaurs developed hunting strategies that involved movement through forests and open plains. Their skeletal structures supported strong muscle attachment and movement abilities. Forested regions during this time contained layered vegetation structures. Lower layers included ferns and small plants. Middle layers included cycads and shrub-like vegetation. Upper layers included tall conifer trees. These layers created diverse habitats for many animals. Small reptiles and early mammals also lived within these environments. These smaller animals fed on insects, plants, and small organisms. Marine reptiles during this time included long-bodied forms that moved through water using limb and body motion. These animals fed on fish and other marine organisms. Their body structures supported movement in aquatic environments. Some marine reptiles lived near coastal regions, while others lived in deeper waters. Their fossil remains provide information about their feeding behavior and movement patterns. The late portion of the Jurassic period involved further changes in ecosystems. Dinosaur groups continued to develop new forms adapted to different environments. Some dinosaurs developed specialized feeding structures for plant material found in specific regions. Others developed skull structures, designed for capturing prey in various environments. These adaptations allowed them to live in many habitats across land areas. Plant life during this time continued to include ferns, cycads, and conifers. These plants remained widespread across land regions. Their growth supported many herbivorous dinosaurs. Seed production in conifers allowed plants to spread across wide areas. Fern reproduction supported rapid growth in suitable environments. These plant systems maintained ecological balance within land environments. Air environments during the Jurassic period supported flying reptiles and early birds. These animals used wings for movement across different regions. They nested in trees, cliffs, and coastal areas. Their feeding patterns included insects, small animals, and marine organisms found near shorelines. Their presence contributed to interactions between land and marine ecosystems. Sedimentation processes during this period continued to shape Earth's surface. Rivers, lakes, and seas deposited layers of sand, mud, and organic material. These layers built up over time and formed rock structures that preserved fossils. Geological activity influenced the distribution of these layers across different regions. These sedimentary formations provide detailed records of environmental conditions. Animal life during this period included many small reptiles, early mammals, amphibians, and insects. These organisms lived in forests, wetlands, and dry regions. Insects played important roles in plant pollination and decomposition processes. Small mammals lived in hidden environments and fed on insects and plant material. Amphibians lived near water sources and depended on moist environments for survival. The Jurassic period involved continuous interaction between land, sea, and air environments. These environments supported many forms of life that adapted to changing conditions over long periods of time. Ecosystems remained active through cycles of growth, reproduction, and environmental change. Geological processes influenced the formation of habitats and the distribution of living organisms. Dinosaurs remained the dominant land animals throughout this period. Their presence shaped ecosystems through feeding behavior, movement, and reproduction. Their fossil remains provide extensive records of their existence across many regions of the world. These records show details of their bone structures, growth patterns, and environmental distribution. The rise of sauropods was a long and gradual part of life on Earth that took place during the Mesozoic time, especially starting in the Triassic period and continuing through the Jurassic period and into the Cretaceous period. These animals were a group of long-necked, long-tailed, plant-eating dinosaurs that developed many special body features that allowed them to live on land and grow to very great body sizes, compared to most other land animals that had existed before them. Their story begins with small and early dinosaur ancestors that lived more than 200 million years ago, when the land on Earth was arranged in a different way, and the climate and environments were changing in many regions. Over long periods of time, these early dinosaur forms slowly changed in body structure, feeding habits, and movement, leading to the appearance of early sauropod types. In the early stages, the ancestors of sauropods were not very large. They walked on land with 4 limbs or sometimes on 2 limbs, depending on the species, and they fed on plants that were available in forests, floodplains, and areas with growing vegetation. The structure of their necks started to become longer as time passed, which allowed them to reach food that was higher off the ground. This change in neck length happened gradually across many generations. Their tails also became longer and stronger, helping balance their bodies as the front part of the body changed in shape and weight distribution. The body structure of sauropods changed in many important ways as they developed. Their legs became straight and column-like, which helped support more body weight. The bones of their limbs became thick and strong, and the joints between bones became more stable to carry heavy loads. Their feet also changed in shape, becoming broader and more supportive for walking on land surfaces, such as soft soil, wet ground, and forest floors. These changes allowed them to move in a stable way even as their body size increased over time. The neck of sauropods is one of the most important features in their development. It became very long in many species and contained many vertebrae that were shaped in ways that made the neck flexible and able to move in different directions. This long neck allowed them to reach vegetation in a wide area without needing to move their whole body frequently. The bones in the neck were often lightened by internal structures that reduced weight while still keeping strength. This helped prevent the neck from becoming too heavy for the body to support. The tail of sauropods also played an important role in body balance. As the neck became longer and the front part of the body extended forward, the tail grew longer to balance the weight. The tail contained many vertebrae and muscles that supported movement and stability. It also helped with shifting body weight while walking or turning. In some species, the tail was extremely long and contained many small bones near the end. The skull of sauropods was usually small compared to the rest of the body. It contained teeth that were adapted for eating plant material. These teeth were often shaped like simple pegs or spoons, designed for stripping leaves from branches, rather than chewing tough plant matter extensively. Because of this, sauropods likely swallowed plant material in large amounts and relied on internal digestion processes to break it down. Their heads were connected to long necks that allowed feeding in many directions and at different heights. The digestive system of sauropods was important for processing large amounts of plant food. They needed to consume many plants every day to support their large bodies. Their stomachs and intestines were likely adapted to break down plant material with the help of microorganisms that lived inside their digestive system. These microorganisms helped break down tough plant fibers into nutrients that the body could absorb. This process supported continuous energy needs for growth, movement, and maintenance of body tissues. The skin of sauropods is not fully known in detail because fossil evidence is limited, but some impressions suggest that it may have been covered in small scales. These scales provided protection for the body and helped regulate interaction with the environment. The skin likely varied in thickness depending on body region and species, with some areas possibly having thicker protection than others. Sauropods lived in many different environments that existed during the Mesozoic time. These environments included forests with large trees, open floodplains with rivers, and areas with seasonal rainfall changes. Plants in these environments included ferns, conifers, cycads, and other types of vegetation that were common during those periods. These plants provided the main food source for sauropods, and their distribution influenced where sauropods moved and lived. The development of sauropods was influenced by changes in Earth's climate and land structures. During the Triassic period, the continents were joined together in a large landmass, which allowed animals to move across wide areas. As time passed into the Jurassic period, the land began to separate into different regions. This separation created different environments where sauropods adapted in various ways. The availability of plant food in different regions supported the growth of many sauropod species with different body sizes and shapes. The early sauropods had body structures that were less extreme compared to later forms. Over time, changes in bone structure, muscle arrangement, and internal air spaces in bones allowed some sauropods to develop very large body sizes. These internal air spaces reduced the weight of bones without reducing strength. This made it possible for the body to grow larger while still being supported by the limbs. The movement of sauropods was generally slow and steady due to their body size. Their legs moved in coordinated patterns that supported balance. The front and back limbs worked together to support weight distribution. The joints in the legs allowed controlled movement, and the muscles were arranged to provide strength for walking and standing. Even though they moved slowly compared to smaller animals, their movement was stable and consistent over long distances. The growth of sauropods from young individuals to fully grown adults involved long periods of development. Young sauropods were much smaller and more vulnerable, and they grew over many years into large adults. Growth rates varied between species, but many sauropods showed continuous growth for a large part of their lives. This growth required large amounts of plant food and efficient digestion. The reproduction of sauropods involved laying eggs. Fossil evidence shows that sauropods laid eggs in nests that were placed in suitable environments. These eggs were relatively small compared to the adult body size. after hatching, young sauropods had to survive in environments where they faced many natural challenges. Some evidence suggests that young sauropods may have formed groups for protection, although details vary among species. The development of different sauropod groups occurred over long periods of time. Different lineages developed different body proportions, neck lengths, tail structures, and feeding strategies. Some sauropods had very long necks with many vertebrae, while others had shorter necks but stronger bodies. These differences allowed them to occupy different feeding areas and ecological roles within their environments. The fossil record of sauropods shows bones, teeth, footprints, and sometimes skin impressions. These fossils are found in many parts of the world, showing that sauropods were widely distributed across ancient land areas. Footprints provide information about movement patterns, showing how these animals walked and how their limbs were positioned during movement. Bone fossils show internal structure and growth patterns that help scientists understand how their bodies developed over time. The bones of sauropods often show internal structures that are filled with air spaces. These spaces are connected to the respiratory system, which may have been similar in some ways to modern birds. This system helped reduce body weight while allowing efficient breathing. The air spaces in bones also helped regulate body structure during growth and movement. The muscles of sauropods were attached to bones in ways that supported large body mass. The neck muscles supported head and neck movement, while leg muscles supported walking and standing. The tail muscles helped with balance and movement control. These muscle systems work together to maintain stability in different environments. The sensory abilities of sauropods included vision, smell, and possibly hearing. Their eyes were positioned on the skull in ways that allowed them to observe their surroundings. Their sense of smell may have helped them locate food sources and detect environmental changes. Hearing abilities are less clear but may have been important for communication or environmental awareness. Communication among sauropods likely involved body movement, sound production, and possibly low-frequency vibrations. These forms of communication may have helped individuals stay together in groups or coordinate movement across landscapes. Social behavior likely varied between species and environments. The long time span of sauropod existence allowed many changes to occur in their evolution. Over millions of years, they adapted to different climates, vegetation types, and environmental conditions. Some species developed extremely long necks that allowed feeding from tall vegetation, while others focused on ground-level plants. These adaptations supported survival in changing ecosystems. The extinction of many sauropod groups occurred at the end of the Cretaceous period, when major environmental changes took place on Earth. These changes affected plant life, climate conditions, and ecosystems. Some sauropod lineages survived longer in certain regions before eventually disappearing. Their fossil remains continue to provide information about their long history on Earth. The study of sauropods helps in understanding how large land animals developed body structures that supported great size, long lifespans, and wide environmental distribution. Their skeletal structures, growth patterns, and feeding systems show how life can adapt over very long periods of time under changing environmental conditions. The internal structure of sauropod bones shows patterns of growth that include layers formed over time. These layers help scientists understand age and growth speed. Some sauropods show rapid growth during early life stages, followed by slower growth as they approached full body size. This pattern allowed them to reach large body dimensions within their lifespan. The neck structure of sauropods includes vertebrae with complex shapes that allowed flexibility and support. The joints between neck bones allowed movement in different directions while maintaining stability. Ligaments and muscles worked together to control movement and hold the neck in position during feeding and other activities. The tail structure also included specialized bones and muscle attachments that allowed controlled movement. In some species, the tail may have been used for balance adjustments during walking or turning. The distribution of weight along the body required continuous adjustment by the tail and limbs. The environment in which sauropods lived included seasonal changes in temperature and rainfall in many regions. These changes affected plant growth and food availability. Sauropods adapted by moving across large areas to find food sources and suitable living conditions. Their ability to travel across land supported their survival in different environments. The diversity of sauropod species included many different body sizes and shapes. Some had very elongated necks with small heads, while others had more compact body forms. These differences show how evolution produced many variations within the group over time. Each variation represented adaptation to specific environmental conditions and food sources. The fossil evidence of sauropods continues to be studied through bones found in rock layers formed millions of years ago. These rock layers preserve information about ancient environments, plant life, and animal communities. The arrangement of fossils in these layers helps reconstruct the history of sauropod development. The study of sauropods also includes analysis of their respiratory systems, which involved airflow through lungs and air sacs. These systems allowed efficient oxygen exchange and may have supported large body size by improving breathing efficiency. The connection between bones and respiratory structures is visible in fossil evidence. The feeding behavior of sauropods involved stripping leaves from plants, using their teeth, and then swallowing plant material with minimal chewing. Their digestive systems processed this material over long periods of time. This feeding method required constant access to vegetation and large daily intake of plant matter. The movement patterns of sauropods across landscapes included slow walking over long distances. Their limb structure supported steady movement rather than rapid speed. The coordination between limbs helped maintain balance during movement over uneven ground surfaces. The growth and development of sauropods required large energy intake and efficient nutrient processing. Young individuals needed protection and access to food-rich areas to survive. Growth into adult size took many years and involved continuous changes in body structure. The long evolutionary history of sauropods shows gradual changes in body form, feeding behavior, and environmental adaptation across millions of years. Their presence across different continents shows wide distribution and successful adaptation to many types of ecosystems. The skeletal remains of sauropods continue to provide important information about their internal structure, movement abilities, and growth processes. These remains include bones from the neck, back, limbs, and tail, each showing specific adaptations that supported their way of life. The diversification of theropods and early predators describes a long process in the history of life on land, where many kinds of meat-eating dinosaurs appeared, spread, and developed different body forms, feeding habits, and ways of living. This process began in the early stages of the dinosaur era, when the first theropods emerged from earlier reptile groups during the late Triassic time. At that time, land environments were changing, and many reptile groups were already present, but theropods began to form a distinct branch of dinosaurs that would later produce a wide range of predators. The earliest theropods appeared in the late Triassic period, which took place many millions of years ago, during a time when the continents were still joined in large landmasses. These early theropods were generally small to medium-sized animals with light bodies and long hind limbs. Their bodies were adapted for movement on land, and they had features that allowed them to move with speed and agility. Their skulls were shaped with sharp teeth designed for feeding on meat, and their hands had claws that helped in capturing and holding prey. During this early stage, theropods were not the dominant land predators in all environments. They shared ecosystems with other reptile groups, such as early crocodile relatives and large herbivorous reptiles. However, theropods began to occupy a specific role in many environments as active hunters and opportunistic feeders. Their presence marked the beginning of a long evolutionary path that would lead to many forms of predatory dinosaurs across later time periods. As time moved into the early Jurassic period, theropods began to diversify in both body structure and ecological roles. This diversification means that different lines of theropods developed different features and adapted to different ways of life. Some remained small and fast-moving, while others grew into larger forms with stronger jaws and more powerful limbs. This diversification was driven by changes in environments, the availability of food sources, and the presence of other animals competing for survival. One of the early groups that developed during this time included the coelophysoid theropods. These animals were generally slender in body form with long tails that helped balance their movement. Their skulls were narrow and their teeth were sharp and closely spaced. They likely fed on small animals and possibly scavenged when the opportunity was available. Fossil evidence shows that some of these animals lived in groups, which suggests that social behavior may have been present in early theropod evolution. Another early group that began to appear during the transition from the late Triassic to the early Jurassic were ceratosaurian theropods. These dinosaurs showed a wider range of body shapes and sizes. Some retained slender builds, while others developed stronger skull structures. Ceratosaurs continued to diversify throughout the Jurassic period and later periods of dinosaur history. They became part of many ecosystems and maintained their presence alongside other evolving predator groups. As theropods continued to evolve, another major division began to form within their evolutionary history. This division led to the development of tetaneuran theropods. Tetanuri is a large group that includes many later predators. Early members of this group began to show changes in their hands, arms, and overall body structure. Their three-fingered hands became more specialized for grasping, and their bodies became adapted for a wide range of predatory behaviors. Within tetaneurans, further diversification led to the emergence of several important lineages. One of these lineages was the Allosauroid group. Allosauroids became prominent predators in many Jurassic ecosystems. They developed strong skulls with sharp teeth and powerful jaws that allowed them to feed on large herbivorous dinosaurs of their time. Their bodies were structured to support active hunting behavior, and they occupied important positions within food chains. At the same time, another branch of tetaneurans began to evolve into coelurosaurian theropods. Coelurosaurs were a very diverse group that eventually included many different forms of predators. Early coelurosaurs were generally small and lightly built, but over time this group expanded into a wide range of sizes and ecological roles. This group would later give rise to some of the most well-known predatory dinosaurs in later periods. During the Jurassic period, the diversification of theropods continued steadily. Many environments across landmasses supported different types of ecosystems, and theropods adapted to these conditions in multiple ways. Some theropods developed longer hind limbs for sustained movement across open areas. Others developed stronger jaws for handling larger prey. Some maintained smaller body sizes and specialized in hunting small animals or feeding on a variety of available food sources. The structure of theropod skulls also changed significantly during this time. Early theropods had relatively simple skull shapes with sharp teeth designed for slicing flesh. As diversification continued, skulls became more complex in structure. Some developed reinforced bones for stronger biting forces. Others developed lighter skull structures that allowed for quicker movements of the head during feeding. These changes reflect different feeding strategies that developed within theropod groups. The limbs of theropods also showed important changes during diversification. The hind limbs remained the primary source of movement, but their proportions changed in different lineages. Some theropods developed longer lower leg bones, which may have supported faster movement across ground surfaces. Others developed stronger thigh bones that supported greater body weight. The front limbs also changed, especially in later Coelurosaur groups, where hands became more flexible and adapted for grasping. Feeding behavior among theropods also became more varied during this process. Early theropods likely fed on small vertebrates and possibly insects or other small animals when available. As body sizes increased in some lineages, feeding behavior expanded to include larger prey. Some theropods may have been active hunters, while others may have taken advantage of carcasses left by other animals. The diversity of feeding behavior reflects the wide range of ecological roles that theropods began to occupy. The diversification of early predators was not limited to theropods alone, but theropods became the dominant group of land-based meat-eating dinosaurs over time. Their evolutionary success was linked to their ability to adapt to different environments and food sources. As ecosystems changed, theropods continued to develop new physical traits that allowed them to survive and expand into new ecological roles. During the Middle Jurassic period, theropod diversity continued to increase. Fossil evidence shows that many different types of theropods existed in various parts of the world. These animals occupied forested environments, open plains, and regions near water sources. Each environment supported different types of prey animals, which influenced the development of theropod feeding strategies. Some theropods developed stronger jaw muscles that allowed them to exert greater force when biting. This adaptation supported feeding on larger or more resistant prey animals. Other theropods developed lighter skulls and more delicate teeth which may have been suited for smaller prey. These differences in skull and tooth structure show how theropods adapted to different feeding roles within ecosystems. The sensory systems of theropods also developed during this time. Their vision was generally well developed, supporting hunting behavior in many species. Some theropods may have had enhanced senses of smell, which could help them locate food sources. These sensory abilities played important roles in their survival and feeding success. As the Jurassic period progressed, Coelurosaurian theropods began to diversify further. This group included many small-bodied predators that occupied various ecological roles. Some Coelurosaurs developed longer arms and more flexible hands, which may have assisted in capturing small prey. Others developed changes in skull shape that supported different feeding methods. This diversity within Coelurosaurs laid the foundation for many later predatory dinosaur groups. The Allosauroid group also continued to diversify during this time. Members of this group became important large predators in many ecosystems. Their skeletal structures show adaptations for powerful movement and feeding. Their teeth were often curved and serrated, which supported feeding on large animals. These theropods played significant roles in controlling populations of herbivorous dinosaurs in their environments. Environmental changes during the Jurassic period also influenced theropod diversification. Climate conditions varied across regions, and vegetation types changed over time. These changes affected the distribution of prey animals, which in turn influenced theropod evolution. As prey animals developed different defensive features, theropods responded with changes in hunting strategies and physical adaptations. The late Jurassic period saw continued diversification of theropods, with many distinct groups established across different land areas. Coelurosaurs became more varied in size and structure. Allosauroids remained important, large predators in many regions. Ceratosaurs continued to exist in some ecosystems, maintaining their presence alongside other theropod groups. During this time, the structure of theropod vertebrae and tails also showed changes. Many theropods had long tails that provided balance during movement. Changes in vertebrae structure helped support different levels of flexibility and strength. These features played important roles in movement and hunting behavior. The evolution of theropod eggs and reproductive behavior also contributed to their diversification. Fossil evidence suggests that some theropods built nests and laid eggs in organized patterns. Parental care may have existed in some groups, although the extent of this behavior varied among different lineages. Reproductive strategies influenced population survival and expansion into different environments. As theropods continued to diversify, early stages of the Cretaceous period began to show even greater variety in predatory dinosaurs. Coelurosaurs expanded into many new forms, including early members of groups that would later become tyrannosauroids and maniraptorans. These groups showed increasing specialization in body structure and feeding behavior. Tyrannosauroid theropods began as relatively small-bodied predators during early stages of their evolution. Over time, they developed stronger skulls and more powerful jaw structures. Their teeth became adapted for gripping and tearing flesh. These changes allowed them to occupy different ecological roles in later ecosystems. Maniraptoran theropods also emerged as a highly diverse group. This group included many forms with specialized forelimbs and flexible hands. Their body structures show a high level of adaptation for different types of movement and feeding. Some maniraptorans developed feather-like structures, which may have served various functions related to movement and insulation. The diversification of theropods continued through the early Cretaceous period, with increasing complexity in ecosystems. Different theropod groups occupied different ecological roles, including small predators, medium-sized hunters, and large apex predators. Each group developed specific adaptations that allowed them to survive in their environments. In many regions, theropods coexisted with a wide variety of herbivorous dinosaurs. This led to ongoing evolutionary changes in both predator and prey species. As herbivores developed defensive structures such as body armor or defensive behaviors, theropods developed stronger jaws, sharper teeth, and more efficient movement abilities. The skeletal structure of theropods also became more specialized over time. Some groups developed hollow bones that reduced body weight. Others developed reinforced bones that supported stronger muscle attachment. These changes supported different styles of movement and feeding behavior. Theropod diversity also extended to different habitats, including coastal regions, forested areas, and dry inland environments. Each habitat supported different ecological conditions that influenced theropod evolution. The availability of food sources and environmental conditions shaped the development of different predatory adaptations. The development of feathers in some theropod groups marked an important stage in their evolutionary history. Feathers may have first appeared for insulation or display purposes, and later became involved in movement in certain lineages. This feature became more common in Coelurosaurian theropods and contributed to their diversification. The development of plant-eating dinosaurs and the gradual formation of herd behavior among them is a long process that took place over many millions of years during the age of dinosaurs. It is a story that begins in the early stages of dinosaur history, when the first small plant-eating species started to appear in different parts of the world. These early herbivorous dinosaurs lived in environments that were changing slowly over time, with shifting climates, growing forests, and expanding plant life. As plants became more abundant and more diverse, dinosaurs that fed on them also began to change in body size, feeding methods, movement patterns, and social behavior. This long process did not happen in a single moment, but developed step by step across vast stretches of time, with many small changes building upon each other. In the early stages of dinosaur evolution, plant-eating dinosaurs were generally small and lightly built. They lived in environments where food sources were limited and where survival depended on quickly finding plants and avoiding predators. Their teeth were simple and designed mainly for cutting soft plant material. Their jaws were not yet specialized for grinding tough vegetation, and their digestive systems were still developing ways to process large amounts of plant fiber. At this stage, plant-eating dinosaurs did not have the ability to consume large quantities of low-quality vegetation efficiently, so they often fed on young leaves, soft shoots, and small plants that were easier to digest. As time passed, plant life on Earth changed significantly. Forests became more widespread and new types of plants appeared. These changes created new food opportunities for herbivorous dinosaurs. In response, plant-eating dinosaurs began to evolve more specialized teeth. Some developed leaf-shaped teeth with serrated edges that allowed them to cut through tougher plant material. Others developed teeth that were arranged in rows, allowing continuous replacement throughout their lives. This was important because plant eating caused a lot of wear on teeth, and constant replacement ensured that feeding could continue without interruption. Along with changes in teeth, the jaws of these dinosaurs also changed. The muscles that controlled the jaw became stronger, allowing them to chew more effectively. In some species, the jaw movement became more complex, allowing both up and down and side-to-side motion. This allowed for better grinding of plant material, which increased the efficiency of digestion. As digestion improved, these dinosaurs were able to extract more energy from plants, which supported larger body sizes and longer lifespans. The increase in body size among plant-eating dinosaurs was one of the most important developments in their evolution. Larger bodies allowed them to store more energy and survive longer periods without food. It also allowed them to reach higher vegetation that smaller animals could not access. As body size increased, other changes also occurred in their skeletons. Their legs became stronger and more supportive, allowing them to carry heavier weight. Their bones became more solid in some species, while in others they remained light but strong due to internal structures that provided support without adding unnecessary mass. As these dinosaurs became larger, their movement patterns also changed. Smaller herbivores tended to move quickly and in short bursts, while larger ones moved more slowly but could travel longer distances. This change in movement was connected to their need to find large amounts of food each day. Since large plant-eating dinosaurs required significant quantities of vegetation, they often needed to move across wide areas to find enough food to sustain themselves. As plant-eating dinosaurs expanded in size and distribution, interactions between individuals became more frequent. At first, many of these dinosaurs likely lived solitary lives, meeting others mainly during breeding seasons or when food sources overlapped. However, over time, living in groups became more common in certain species. This shift was influenced by several factors, including environmental conditions, predator pressure, and the distribution of food resources. In environments where predators were common, plant-eating dinosaurs that stayed close to each other had a better chance of survival. Being in a group reduced the likelihood that any single individual would be targeted. Even though there was no coordinated defense system in the early stages, simple clustering provided a level of safety. Over many generations, this behavior became more common, and some species began to spend more time in groups rather than alone. Group living also became more beneficial in environments where food was scattered. When vegetation was spread across large areas, groups of herbivores could move together and locate new feeding grounds more efficiently. Younger individuals could also learn from older ones by following their movements and feeding habits. This gradual learning process helped improve survival rates and allowed knowledge of feeding locations to be passed through generations in a nonverbal way. As group living became more common, the beginnings of herd behavior started to form. Herd behavior refers to the tendency of individuals within a group to move together, respond to environmental changes together, and maintain close proximity. In early plant-eating dinosaurs, this behavior was not highly organized, but it still showed basic coordination. For example, when one individual moved in a certain direction, others often followed. When one sensed danger, others reacted in similar ways, even without direct communication. Over time, these simple responses became more refined. Dinosaurs that responded quickly to the movement of others had a better chance of survival, and natural selection favored those traits. As a result, herd movement became more synchronized in some species. This did not mean that all individuals acted in perfect coordination, but rather that group movement became more consistent and predictable. The development of herd behavior also influenced reproduction. In some plant-eating dinosaur species, individuals began to gather in specific areas during breeding periods. These gatherings allowed multiple individuals to mate within a shared space, increasing the chances of successful reproduction. After breeding, some groups stayed together for extended periods, especially when young dinosaurs were present. The presence of juveniles encouraged continued group living, as younger individuals were more vulnerable and benefited from the protection of larger groups. Juvenile plant-eating dinosaurs played an important role in the development of herd behavior. Young individuals were often less experienced in finding food and avoiding danger. Staying close to adults increased their chances of survival. Over time, this created a structure within groups where younger individuals remained near the center or within protected areas of the group, while larger adults positioned themselves around them. This arrangement was not fixed, but developed naturally based on movement and behavior patterns. As herd behavior became more established, communication between individuals also improved. Although dinosaurs did not have complex vocal systems like modern animals, they likely used sounds, body movements, and visual signals to interact. Simple calls or noises may have been used to signal danger or attract attention. Body posture and movement direction also helped coordinate group activity. These forms of communication became more effective over time as individuals that responded better to signals had higher survival rates, different species of plant-eating dinosaurs developed herd behavior in different ways. Some species formed small, loose groups that only stayed together for short periods. Others formed larger and more stable herds that moved together for long distances. The size and structure of these groups depended on environmental conditions and the biology of each species. In areas where food was abundant and evenly distributed, groups could remain stable for longer periods. In areas where food was scarce or seasonal, groups tended to form temporarily and then separate when conditions changed. As plant-eating dinosaurs continued to diversify, their herd structures also became more complex. Some species developed seasonal movement patterns where groups traveled together during certain times of the year. These movements were often influenced by changes in vegetation, water availability, and climate conditions. By moving together, groups were able to access fresh feeding areas and avoid regions where resources were depleted. The growth of herd behavior also influenced the physical evolution of plant-eating dinosaurs. Individuals that lived in groups often developed traits that improved their ability to stay with the group. This included better balance, improved endurance, and in some cases, enhanced sensory abilities such as better vision or hearing. These traits helped individuals remain aware of the movements of others and respond quickly to changes within the group. As plant-eating dinosaurs became more successful in group living, their populations expanded in many regions. Large herds could contain many individuals of different ages and sizes. These groups created dynamic systems where movement, feeding, and survival were closely connected. The structure of these herds was not fixed, but changed constantly based on environmental conditions and internal group interactions. Over long periods of time, herd behavior became an important part of survival. For many plant-eating dinosaur species, it influenced how they moved, how they fed, how they reproduced, and how they raised their young. Even though the level of organization varied between species, the general trend toward group living and coordinated movement remained consistent in many herbivorous dinosaur lineages. As environments continued to change, plant-eating dinosaurs adapted their herd behavior to new conditions. In some cases, herds became larger to cover wider areas of land. In other cases, they became smaller and more flexible to respond quickly to environmental changes. This flexibility allowed plant-eating dinosaurs to survive across different habitats, from dense forests to open plains. The development of plant-eating dinosaurs and herd behavior represents a long process shaped by gradual biological changes and repeated environmental pressures. It involves changes in teeth, jaws, body size, movement patterns, social interaction, reproduction, and communication. Each of these elements contributed to the gradual formation of group-living behavior, which became an important part of survival for many herbivorous dinosaur species over time. The history of dinosaurs on Earth was strongly affected by many natural events that changed land, air, and oceans over long stretches of time. Among these natural events, volcanic activity and different forms of natural disasters played important roles in shaping environments where dinosaurs lived. These events influenced food availability, plant growth, water systems, land surfaces, and atmospheric conditions. They also influenced how different groups of dinosaurs appeared, lived, and disappeared in various time periods across millions of years. Volcanic activity during the age of dinosaurs occurred in many regions of the world. Large eruptions released ash, gases, and molten rock from deep inside the Earth. These materials spread across wide areas and entered the atmosphere. When ash reached the air, it reduced the amount of sunlight reaching the ground. This reduction of sunlight affected plant growth because plants depend on sunlight to produce energy. When plant growth was affected, herbivorous dinosaurs also experienced changes in food availability. This change then influenced carnivorous dinosaurs that depended on herbivores for food. Volcanic gases released during eruptions included carbon dioxide and sulfur compounds. Carbon dioxide remained in the atmosphere and influenced temperature conditions over long periods. Sulfur compounds formed particles that reflected sunlight away from the surface. These particles remained in the upper atmosphere for periods of time, ranging from months to several years. During these periods, surface cooling occurred in many regions. This cooling affected ecosystems by changing plant distribution and water availability. Ash layers from volcanic eruptions settled on land and water surfaces. When ash covered soil, it changed soil composition. Some soil areas became temporarily less suitable for plant growth. Rivers and lakes also received ash deposits, which affected aquatic life. Fish and other water organisms experienced changes in oxygen levels and water clarity. These changes influenced food chains that included dinosaurs living near water sources. In some regions, volcanic activity formed large basalt formations over long time spans. These formations developed through repeated lava flows. Lava spread across land and hardened into rock layers. Over time, these layers created extensive volcanic plateaus. These plateaus changed landscapes by covering older surfaces and creating new ground levels. Dinosaurs living in these regions had to move across changing terrain, and plant life adjusted to new soil conditions created by volcanic materials. Volcanic eruptions also released heat that affected local environments near eruption sites. In areas close to volcanic vents, temperatures rose significantly during active periods. Living organisms in these areas experienced rapid environmental changes. Some animals moved away from eruption zones, while others faced survival challenges due to heat, ash, and gas exposure. These changes influenced the distribution of dinosaurs across affected regions. During different geological intervals, volcanic activity occurred repeatedly in various parts of the world. One major period of extensive volcanic activity occurred during the later part of the Dinosaur Age, when large regions of what is now India experienced widespread lava flows. These lava flows formed thick layers of basalt rock over time. The gases released during this period entered the atmosphere and affected global environmental conditions. Plant life in many regions experienced stress due to changes in sunlight and atmospheric composition. Another major volcanic region during dinosaur history existed in areas that are now part of Siberia. This region experienced extensive volcanic activity over long durations. Lava flows and gas emissions altered land surfaces and atmospheric conditions. These changes influenced ecosystems over wide geographic areas. Ash and gas spread across land and water systems, affecting both terrestrial and marine environments. Volcanic activity was not the only natural force that influenced dinosaur history. Earthquakes also played a role in shaping land surfaces. Earthquakes occurred when movement inside the Earth's crust released energy. This energy caused ground shaking that affected land structures. During strong earthquakes, land surfaces shifted and cracks formed in the ground. These changes influenced river paths, lake shapes, and coastal regions. When earthquakes occurred near coastal areas, they sometimes triggered movements of water masses. These water movements affected shoreline environments. Coastal vegetation and animals experienced changes in habitat conditions. Dinosaurs that lived near coastlines had to adapt to shifting land and water boundaries. River systems also changed direction due to ground movement, which affected water availability in certain regions. Earthquakes sometimes occurred in series over extended periods. These repeated events caused gradual changes in land structures. Over time, landscapes were reshaped through repeated ground movement. Sediment layers in some regions show evidence of repeated shaking events, which influenced how fossils were preserved. Dinosaur remains became buried under layers of sediment that shifted during these events. Another important natural disaster during dinosaur history was the impact of large extraterrestrial objects. One significant impact event occurred when a large object from space entered Earth's atmosphere and struck the surface. This impact released large amounts of energy at the point of contact. The energy caused widespread changes in the surrounding environment. The impact produced shock waves that spread through land and water. These waves caused disturbances in many regions. Material from the impact site was ejected into the atmosphere. This material included rock particles and dust that spread across the planet. When this material entered the atmosphere, it reduced sunlight reaching the surface. Reduced sunlight affected plant growth across many ecosystems. The impact also produced heat that affected areas near the strike zone. Vegetation in nearby regions was affected by intense heat exposure. Water systems near the impact site experienced changes due to sudden energy release. Marine environments were also affected by changes in water temperature and sediment movement. After the impact, dust and particles remained in the atmosphere for extended periods. During this time, sunlight reaching the surface remained reduced in many areas. Plant growth patterns changed due to limited energy input from sunlight. Herbivorous dinosaurs experienced changes in food supply, and these changes affected other animals in the food chain. Sea level changes also occurred during dinosaur history, due to natural processes involving tectonic activity and climate variation. When sea levels rose, coastal areas were covered by water. When sea levels fell, new land areas became exposed. These changes affected habitats available for dinosaurs. Some species lived in coastal plains that shifted over time due to water level changes. River systems also changed during periods of geological activity. Rivers sometimes changed direction due to shifts in land elevation. These changes influenced the distribution of sediments across land areas. Sediments carried by rivers covered plant material and animal remains, which later contributed to fossil formation. Wildfires also occurred during dinosaur history. These fires were often linked to volcanic activity, lightning strikes, and dry environmental conditions. When fires spread across land areas, vegetation was affected. Plant material was consumed by fire, and ash remained on the ground. After fires, new plant growth occurred in affected regions over time. Dinosaurs living in fire-affected areas experienced changes in available food sources and habitat structures. Storm systems also influenced dinosaur environments. Heavy rainfall events affected river levels and caused flooding in some regions. Flooding moved sediment across land surfaces and changed soil conditions. Floodwaters also transported plant material and animal remains to new locations. These movements influenced how fossils were distributed in sediment layers. Wind activity during different time periods transported dust and ash across wide regions. Dust carried by wind settled on land and water surfaces. This dust influenced soil composition and affected plant growth conditions. In some regions, wind activity contributed to gradual changes in landscape surfaces by moving loose material across open areas. Volcanic activity, earthquakes, impacts from space objects, flooding, wildfires, and wind-driven processes all interacted with environmental systems during dinosaur history. These processes did not act in isolation. Instead, they affected land, water, and air systems in overlapping ways across different time periods. The combined effects of these events influenced how ecosystems developed and changed over long spans of time. Sedimentary layers preserved in rock formations show evidence of repeated natural events. Layers of ash indicate volcanic eruptions. Disturbed rock layers indicate earthquake activity. Impact-related deposits show traces of extraterrestrial collisions. Flood deposits show movement of water across land surfaces. These layers provide information about environmental changes that occurred during dinosaur history. Fossil remains of dinosaurs are often found within these layers. The position of fossils within sediment layers indicates the environmental conditions at the time of burial. Some fossils are found in volcanic ash layers, showing that organisms were affected by volcanic activity. Other fossils are found in flood deposits, indicating rapid burial by water movement. Some remains are found in sediment layers associated with dry environmental conditions, followed by sudden environmental changes. Atmospheric changes caused by volcanic gases and dust influenced long-term climate conditions during dinosaur history. These changes affected temperature patterns and rainfall distribution. Variations in atmospheric composition influenced plant distribution across different regions. Plant distribution changes influenced herbivorous dinosaur movement patterns. These movement patterns affected interactions between different dinosaur groups within ecosystems. Ocean systems were also affected by volcanic activity and other natural events. Changes in temperature and chemical composition of seawater influenced marine life. Marine reptiles and other organisms experienced changes in food availability due to shifting ocean conditions. Sediment from land entered oceans through rivers and wind transport, affecting coastal marine environments. Large volcanic regions that formed over long time periods contributed to gradual changes in atmospheric composition. Gas emissions from these regions continued over extended durations. These emissions influenced environmental conditions across wide geographic areas. Ecosystem responses occurred over long periods as living organisms adjusted to changing conditions. Repeated environmental disturbances influenced how dinosaur populations were distributed across land areas. Some regions experienced frequent changes in environmental conditions due to ongoing geological activity. Other regions experienced more stable conditions for certain periods before later changes occurred. These variations influenced how different dinosaur groups occupied available habitats. Natural disasters also influenced the preservation of organic material. Rapid burial caused by ashfall, flooding, or sediment movement increased the likelihood of fossil formation. When organisms were quickly covered by sediment, decomposition slowed. This process allowed remains to be preserved within rock layers. Over long periods, these preserved remains became part of geological records. Changes in land elevation due to tectonic movement also influenced environmental patterns. Rising and falling land surfaces changed drainage systems and water flow direction. These changes affected ecosystems that depended on stable water sources. Dinosaurs living in these environments experienced shifts in habitat structure as landforms changed over time. Volcanic eruptions, earthquake activity, impact events, flooding, fire activity, wind movement, and atmospheric changes all contributed to shaping environments during dinosaur history. These processes influenced ecosystems in many ways across long periods of geological time. The Cretaceous period began about 145 million years ago and continued until about 66 million years ago. It was a long division of time in Earth history, during which many forms of dinosaurs lived across land areas that were arranged in different positions from earlier times. Land masses were separated into large and small regions, and these regions slowly changed shape and position over many millions of years. The climate in many regions stayed warm for long periods, and this supported many forms of plant life and animal life across land and water environments. The surface of the Earth included wide, shallow seas that covered large areas of land, and these seas supported many living organisms that contributed to food chains in marine environments. On land, many types of forests, open regions and mixed plant environments existed, and these supported a wide range of dinosaur species. During this period, dinosaur life showed a very wide variety of forms. Many groups of dinosaurs existed at the same time, each group showing different body structures, feeding habits, and movement patterns. Large herbivorous dinosaurs lived in many regions and fed on plant materials such as leaves, stems, seeds, and early flowering plants that developed during this time. Smaller herbivorous dinosaurs also existed and often lived in groups or moved in small collections across land areas where plants were available. Carnivorous dinosaurs also existed in many forms, ranging from small fast-moving types to large powerful types that fed on other animals. These carnivorous dinosaurs occupied many ecological roles and lived in different environments such as forests, river valleys, and open plains. Early in this period, many dinosaur groups that had already existed in earlier times continued to develop new body features and new survival patterns. Some groups developed stronger teeth and jaws that allowed them to process different types of plant material. Other groups developed changes in limb structure that allowed movement across different land surfaces. Some dinosaurs developed longer necks that allowed them to reach plant materials located at higher positions. Other dinosaurs developed shorter necks and stronger jaws for feeding close to the ground. These variations allowed many different species to live in similar regions while using different sources of food. As time continued, new plant groups appeared and spread across many regions of the Earth. One major development was the appearance and spread of flowering plants. These plants began to change many ecosystems because they produced flowers and seeds that attracted insects and other small animals. This development created new food sources for the further herbivorous dinosaurs. Some dinosaurs developed feeding methods that allowed them to consume leaves and other plant parts from these flowering plants. The spread of flowering plants also changed the structure of forests and plant environments, creating new spaces for animals to live and feed. The land environment during this time was not uniform across all regions. Some areas had dense plant growth, while other areas had more open plant coverage. River systems flowed through many regions and created areas where sediment accumulated over long periods. These river systems supported plant growth along their banks and provided water sources for many animals. Floodplain areas developed in many places, and these areas supported plant growth that could recover after seasonal changes in water levels. Dinosaurs often moved across these areas in search of food and water. Many dinosaur groups developed specific adaptations for survival in their environments. Some herbivorous dinosaurs developed dental structures that allowed them to grind plant material more effectively. These structures were used repeatedly during feeding and allowed them to process large amounts of plant matter. Some dinosaurs developed beak-like structures that helped them crop plant material. Other dinosaurs developed complex arrangements of teeth that allowed them to break down tough plant surfaces. Carnivorous dinosaurs developed features that supported hunting and feeding on other animals. Some developed sharp teeth that could tear flesh. Others developed strong jaw muscles that allowed them to hold onto prey. Some carnivorous dinosaurs had lightweight body structures that supported fast movement, while others had heavier body structures that supported strength during feeding. These features allowed carnivorous dinosaurs to occupy different roles in ecosystems. During this period, many dinosaur species showed evidence of growth from young stages to adult stages. Fossil evidence shows that some dinosaurs went through rapid growth phases during early life stages. Growth patterns varied between species, and these patterns were influenced by environmental conditions and available food resources. Some dinosaurs laid eggs in nests and protected them in different ways. Some nesting sites show evidence of many eggs placed together in organized arrangements. Some dinosaurs may have returned to nesting sites repeatedly, although direct behavioral observations are not possible, and interpretations are based on fossil evidence. Marine environments during this period also contained a wide variety of life forms. Large marine reptiles existed in seas and oceans, and these animals included different body shapes and feeding methods. Some marine reptiles had long bodies and flippers that supported movement through water. Others had shorter bodies with strong jaws for capturing prey. Marine ecosystems also included many types of fish, shellfish, and small marine organisms that formed food sources for larger animals. The presence of shallow seas allowed many organisms to live in regions where sunlight reached lower water depths, supporting plant-like organisms such as algae. Flying reptiles also existed during this period. These animals had wings supported by elongated finger structures and skin membranes. They lived in different environments and often fed on small animals or insects. Some flying reptiles had large wingspans that supported long-distance movement, while others had smaller wingspans suited for shorter movement ranges. These animals occupied aerial environments and interacted with land-based ecosystems through feeding and nesting activities. Insect life also developed strongly during this time. Many insect groups expanded in diversity due to the spread of flowering plants. Insects played roles in plant reproduction by transferring pollen between flowers. This relationship between plants and insects influenced the structure of ecosystems and supported the growth of new plant species. Insects also served as food sources for many small dinosaurs and other animals. The continents during this period continued to shift slowly. This movement changed the arrangement of land and sea areas over long periods of time. As land areas separated, different groups of dinosaurs became distributed across different regions. Each region developed its own mixture of species based on local environmental conditions. Some regions had large herbivorous dinosaurs that fed on abundant plant life, while other regions had smaller but diverse groups of herbivores and carnivores. These differences in distribution were influenced by geographic separation and environmental variation. In many regions, fossil evidence shows that dinosaurs lived in communities where multiple species shared the same environment. These communities included herbivores of different sizes and carnivores that fed on smaller animals or scavenged remains. Plant life supported these communities by providing continuous food sources. Seasonal changes in rainfall and temperature influenced plant growth patterns, which in turn influenced dinosaur movement and feeding behavior. Some dinosaur groups developed specialized feeding structures that allowed them to process specific types of plants. Some had teeth arranged in large numbers that formed continuous surfaces, for grinding plant material. Others had teeth that were replaced continuously throughout life. Some herbivores had structures that allowed them to remove leaves from branches efficiently. These feeding methods allowed different species to use different plant resources within the same environment. Carnivorous dinosaurs also showed a range of feeding strategies. Some species focused on small prey animals, while others targeted larger herbivorous dinosaurs. Some carnivores may have used ambush strategies, while others may have relied on active pursuit. Fossil evidence of teeth marks on bones shows interactions between carnivores and herbivores. These interactions contributed to the structure of ecosystems. During this period, some dinosaur groups developed protective features. Some herbivores developed body armor made of bony structures embedded in the skin. These structures provided protection against attacks from carnivorous dinosaurs. Other herbivores developed horns or spikes that may have been used in defense. Some dinosaurs developed thickened skull regions that may have been used in interactions with other members of the same species. Growth patterns of dinosaurs during this period show that many species went through changes in body size and structure during development. Young individuals often had different feeding requirements compared to adults. This allowed multiple age groups of the same species to use different resources within the same environment. This separation of feeding behavior based on age reduced direct competition within species. Environmental changes during this period also influenced dinosaur life. Changes in sea levels caused shifts in coastal environments and inland regions. These changes created new habitats and altered existing ones. River systems changed course over time, creating new floodplains and removing older ones. Volcanic activity in some regions influenced local environments by adding minerals to soil and changing plant growth conditions. Fossil evidence from different regions of the world shows that dinosaurs lived in many types of environments, including forested areas, dry regions, river valleys, and coastal plains. Each environment supported different combinations of plant and animal life. Some dinosaurs were adapted to forest environments where dense vegetation was present. Others were adapted to open environments where movement across wide areas was possible. The fossil record also shows that many dinosaur species existed for long periods of time within this division of Earth history. Some species changed gradually over time through small modifications in body structure. These changes accumulated across many generations and resulted in new forms. Other species remained relatively stable in structure for long periods. Egg fossils from this period show that many dinosaurs reproduced by laying eggs in nests. Some nests contain multiple eggs grouped together. Some nests show signs of repeated use over time. Eggshell structures vary between species, showing differences in thickness, texture, and arrangement. These differences may reflect different reproductive strategies among species. Bone fossils also show evidence of injury and healing in some dinosaurs. Some bones show marks of damage, followed by regrowth of bone tissue. This indicates that individuals could survive injuries and continue living for long periods after healing. These fossil patterns provide information about life processes in dinosaur populations. During this time, ecosystems were supported by continuous interactions between plants, herbivores, carnivores, and smaller organisms. Plants form the base of land-based food systems. Herbivorous dinosaurs consumed plant materials and supported carnivorous dinosaurs through predator-prey relationships. Small animals such as insects and early mammals also existed in these environments and interacted with dinosaur populations in different ways. Different regions of the world show variation in fossil types from this period. Some regions contain large numbers of herbivorous dinosaur fossils, while others contain more carnivorous dinosaur fossils. Some regions show a wide mixture of both types along with marine fossils. These patterns reflect differences in environmental conditions and habitat availability across the Earth. The development of flowering plants continued to influence ecosystems throughout this period. These plants spread into many environments and changed the types of vegetation available to herbivorous dinosaurs. Some dinosaurs developed preferences for certain plant types, and these preferences influenced feeding behavior. The interaction between plants and herbivores played an important role in shaping ecosystems. Small vertebrate animals also existed during this time, including early mammals and reptiles. These animals often lived in ground-level environments and fed on insects or plant material. They occupied ecological roles that were separate from most dinosaur species. Their presence added additional layers of interaction within ecosystems. The end of the age of dinosaurs was caused by one of the most powerful natural events in Earth's history. This event is known as the asteroid impact and the End Cretaceous extinction event. It happened about 66 million years ago and changed life on Earth in a very fast and dramatic way. Many groups of living things disappeared, especially the non-bird dinosaurs, while some small animals and plants survived and later became more common. To understand this event clearly, it is important to look at what likely happened, how the asteroid hit Earth, and how it caused such massive changes in the environment and living world. The asteroid that caused this event was very large. Scientists believe it was about 10 to 15 kilometers wide. Even though this may not sound extremely large compared to Earth, an object of this size moving at very high speed carries an enormous amount of energy. The asteroid came from space and traveled through the solar system for a very long time before it reached Earth. When it finally struck, it hit the region that is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. This location is marked today by a large underground structure known as the Cretaceous Paleogene Extinction Event Impact Site, and the visible remnant is the Chicxulub crater. At the moment of impact, the asteroid was moving at tens of thousands of kilometers per hour. When it collided with Earth, it released energy far greater than millions of nuclear bombs combined. The force of the impact instantly destroyed everything in the area where it landed. The ground was vaporized, rocks were melted, and a huge crater formed almost instantly. The crater was so large that it stretched over 180 kilometers wide. Right after the impact, a massive wave of heat spread outward. This heat was strong enough to cause fires over very large distances. Many forests and plants caught fire almost immediately. Even areas far away from the impact zone experienced intense heat, which made survival very difficult for living things. Animals that were not burned by the initial heat still faced extreme conditions in the following hours and days. The impact also threw enormous amounts of dust, ash, and rock into the air. These materials rose high into the atmosphere and spread around the entire planet. The sky became dark even during the daytime. Sunlight could not easily reach the surface of the Earth. This created a long period of darkness that lasted for months or even longer in some areas. Without sunlight, plants could not carry out photosynthesis properly. This meant that many plants began to die, and the food chains that depended on plants started to break down. As plants died, herbivorous dinosaurs lost their main food source. When plant-eating animals became weak and started to die, the carnivorous dinosaurs that depended on them also began to suffer. This chain reaction affected nearly every ecosystem on land. Oceans were also affected. Dust and chemicals entered the seas, changing water conditions and harming marine life. Many species of fish, shellfish and marine reptiles could not survive these sudden changes. Another major problem caused by the impact was the change in temperature. After the initial heat, the planet entered a period of cooling. The dust and particles in the atmosphere blocked sunlight, causing global temperatures to drop. This sudden cooling is sometimes described as an impact winter, because conditions became cold and dark, similar in effect to a long and severe winter. Plants could not grow well under these conditions, and many ecosystems collapsed further. In addition to dust and cooling, the impact also released gases, such as carbon dioxide and sulfur compounds, into the atmosphere. These gases caused further changes in climate. Some regions experienced acid rain, which damaged plants, soil and freshwater systems. The combination of darkness, cooling, fires and acid rain created a very harsh global environment. The extinction was not immediate for all species, but it happened over a relatively short time in geological terms. Within a few years to thousands of years, many species disappeared completely. Large dinosaurs on land were among the most affected. They needed large amounts of food and stable environments, and they could not survive the sudden changes. Flying reptiles and many marine reptiles also went extinct. In total, a large percentage of all species on Earth disappeared during this period. However, not all life was destroyed. Some small animals managed to survive. These included small mammals, certain reptiles, amphibians, birds, and organisms that could live in difficult conditions or survive on limited food. Small size was an advantage because these animals needed less food and could hide more easily. Animals that could eat a wide variety of food also had a better chance of survival. Plants also slowly began to recover after the worst conditions passed. Even though many plant species died, seeds and underground roots allowed some plants to regrow. Over long periods of time, ecosystems began to rebuild. New species evolved and filled the empty spaces left by extinct organisms. The asteroid impact is now understood as the main cause of the end Cretaceous extinction. Before this understanding became widely accepted, scientists debated many possible causes. Some believed that volcanic activity might have been responsible. While large volcanic eruptions did occur around this time, evidence strongly supports the asteroid impact as the main trigger of the global extinction. The discovery of a thin layer of iridium, a rare element on Earth but common in asteroids, found in rocks from this time period, helped confirm this theory. This layer is found all over the world, showing that the event affected the entire planet. The impact changed the direction of life on Earth. Before it happened, dinosaurs were the dominant land animals for over 100 million years. After the event, mammals began to grow in diversity and size over time, eventually leading to the rise of many modern animal groups. Birds, which are considered descendants of certain small dinosaurs, also survived and continued to evolve. The physical evidence of the impact is still visible today in geological layers and the structure of the crater. The study of this event helps scientists understand how sudden environmental changes can affect life on a global scale. It also shows that Earth's history has been shaped by both slow changes over millions of years and sudden events that can quickly transform the planet. The asteroid impact at the end of the Cretaceous period remains one of the most important events in Earth's history because it shows how a single space object can influence climate, ecosystems, and the survival of species across the entire world.